Welcome back. I'm here with Chris again, and in our last episode, we previewed that we would be doing this kind of a bonus episode for the podcast. And so last time we talked about with Chris and the art of Stephen Peringer, and as a number of his pieces are coming to auction, we thought working with Chris would be a great way to go through those pieces and show everyone what's coming to auction. So over to you, Chris.
Yeah. So we have the Peringer family is sending, I think, 19 lots to heritage auctions. They've actually received them, and right now they are planning to be in 3 different auctions in the upcoming months. So the first will be a signature auction, May 23rd and 24th. The second one will be a Nintendo Showcase auction on July 24th, and the third one will be a PC Showcase auction on August 7th. So we can go through these pieces. I apologize in advance. I took these just in a well-lit room with my own camera, and sometimes I was focusing on details or trying to take multiple pictures just to kind of show the detail of the picture. Sometimes the picture will be sideways. So sorry, I'm not a professional photographer, but it was more just to capture what these pieces are to let Heritage know before we sent them in.
Yeah, and I think kind of from what you're saying, from you having gone through some of this artwork with Steven, as we're going through, you may have, anecdotes or things you remember that he talked about. And we'll kind of see as we go through whether we're just saying, yep, here it is, or if there's little stories to go along with it. And then certainly, right, because these are coming to Heritage, they'll take high quality photographs or scans of all the artwork. So this is kind of a early preview of what's coming. Give everyone time to raise money and be ready for the
Yep.
auctions. And then certainly Heritage will post, picture size and other descriptions and details.
Yep.
All right. So, Chris, you want to try to launch a screen share on your side and see how this goes?
All right. Let me try this. All
Okay.
righty.
All righty. So I can see we have a bit of mystery here, right? So we've got numbered folders. And I can say the most Chris has given me is these kind of anonymized descriptions. And so I don't know if, that is the number one. I'll read, I have my little list here, right? It says, kind of reference to almost comic book style promotional art. Is that your numbers track that list you gave me or?
That is correct. All my numbers should line up with yours, except there
Okay.
was one piece not listed that you helped me identify. That'll be number 19 at
Got
the
it.
end.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, I don't know if we'll do this for all of them. I'll do it for the first one. Actually, I know what the first one is, so I don't want to guess because I think I figured it out. So I will let we'll figure out our cadence of rhythm here. But let's start with piece number one, Chris.
All right. So this is actually a lot of different artwork. I was looking at Steven's notes on this, and he said he did the airbrush color on these, and Mark Zingarelli did the ink lines on clear overlays. So it's kind of a collaboration between Steven and another artist. But this is some Nintendo artwork. I think it's kind of promotional artwork
Mm-hmm.
that he did. So there's a calendar. This character's name is Captain Nintendo, and I don't
Okay.
know if it was used internally for marketing purposes. Um, it looks like it is. So anyhow, they have some of these are the actual artwork. Some of them have like the letters, cut in or stickered in. Some of them don't have those. They're just blank,
Mm-hmm.
letter boxes. So I'll kind of
Yeah. And so actually, I this Captain Nintendo, we there's a book called World of Nintendo, and I think it's focused on like Nintendo displays. So there's a display group on Facebook. I think the guy who wrote the book is Andy Cunningham, who's a member. And so just tried to get all this information together of these World of Nintendo signs, like the different the light up signs. I'm blanking on kind of what the terminology for some of these. There's a globe that everyone's in love with. There's like all the different like the kiosks and the units. They all have serial numbers and things like that. And so I bring that up because I think Captain Nintendo ends up getting documented in that book a little bit
okay.
because it was instead of being marketed to consumers, like Captain Nintendo was not to like get kids to go buy Nintendo, right? It was to get, I think, retailers and stores to stock Nintendo product.
Yeah.
is my understanding of like the character and its usage. Very early on in Nintendo's history, I think.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
All right, so let me just kind of run through some of these. Sorry, these are super
sure.
closer shots. I was trying to
Yep.
show details or anything. Here's another piece with this guy holding a phone.
Okay. Yep.
Another one with him kind of jumping in action pose.
Mm-hmm.
Another one with some Nintendo iconic characters. So
Yep.
Mario,
And I
Link,
think
Samus.
and I think from my memory of the published ones, and so I think like either in the editing, maybe I'll give it to Ibrahim to lay something over, or just as we're discussing these between we're in very late March now, right? That this is coming up still about 2 months away from Heritage, right? So I'm sure we'll have pictures will get posted into Facebook group and kind of, hey, this is exactly where this is from, right? The kind of detective game of everyone kind of sharing and talking. So I know we'll be able to post the publish usage of these when they get found.
Right on.
Um,
So again, some more art of the characters.
Excellent. Yeah, actually, I don't recognize this one. It's kind of like there's like a couple that I've seen because of the brochures and things like that that have been scanned online, and there's others that like maybe they got used in one place somewhere. Um, wow. Yeah, so how many offhand? I mean, kind of going through how many different pieces are there? Like I see we're up to like 16, 18 on the numbering. Some of them are close ups, but it got to be at least
Yeah,
10 pieces.
probably. Yeah, I didn't count the exact number, and there's some areas, there's some actual material for where they were featured. I don't know if there's one for every single one, but there
Okay.
were some like folders and other things that came with it, and I believe those are being sent to Heritage as well. So if you win this lot, you'll get a physical copy of, where it was used. At least a lot of these pictures. So
Yeah, there's a lot of there's some obscure material, not just Nintendo, not just this, but where like the only way that the published usage is really known is because the artist happened to have received like a copy of that thing for their own records.
hmm
I had this artwork for the NES game Werewolf by Data East, and there was this like a one sheet kind of flyer. It wasn't just a 8x11, but it was something else that folded, and it probably got printed and created just for CES one year, and small number of copies. I've still never seen another copy surface other than the one that I had, corresponding to like preliminary art that I had, but otherwise it's not anywhere online, right? And so because of the collecting of the artwork, and then because of the artist saving that stuff is the only reason that the history still exists. A lot of this Captain Nintendo is at least the same for me, right? Where I've seen a handful of what you're showing as published, but not uh, the originals,
Yep.
certainly, and a lot of these images.
That's kind of cool to note things like the NES cartridge is his belt buckle.
Yeah, that is cool. Um,
And I think
sort of
we're
board
almost
chest.
done here. Look, he's got the NES zapper.
Yeah, um, very cool. Oh, is that okay? This is some of these got to be repeats of. Is this the same, or is because I remember there was another one with Mario, Link, and Samus.
Yeah.
Maybe this is just a close up of
I,
the same one that was earlier.
so yeah, like I'm at, and this is the actual physical, where it appeared. So
Oh, okay. Because I've seen this image, but it was this image printed in the book, right?
yep,
Versus like not actually being that thing.
yeah. And this is another piece of the physical copy, a calendar of like
Okay,
what's coming out and their promotional plans,
very cool.
kids cereal.
Yeah,
So you
even
can just,
even this stuff.
it's cool
Yeah,
to
it's
have
just
this.
like
Yeah.
okay, yep. There's the phone. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think a lot like this almost starts to pull in some of the history guys more than some of the art guys, right? Where you kind of like some of these brochures and printouts and pamphlets and things. I'm sure some of them are documented online, but probably not all of them, right? And so you start to get into that avenue where, whoever wins this, whether an art collector or otherwise, it's probably going to be this interest from others in the community of, hey, can we please get these things scanned and documented? Because heritage might take, like, with this many items, there might be a group shot of the published material, right? But they're not going to take front and back of each one. And I don't know if these open and have interior pages.
I think I pretty much shot everything. If something had 20 pages, I didn't shoot every single page, but
Yeah.
I think I got like the covers on both sides and things like that.
Oh, awesome.
So that's pretty much the first lot. This is the
Cool.
the one with the most stuff in it. So the other ones are a little
Yeah.
more typical. So
And so before we jump into the second piece, one thing I'll say, Chris, just because of me remembering how some of the screen share mechanics work, I think the next ones will have fewer pictures, but maybe we'll try to leave each image up on the screen for 2 or 3 seconds just to make sure that they, in the final cut, right there, they're in focus and things like that.
okay.
Looks smooth as we're going through it, but who knows in the back end. Alrighty, so second one I have down here as a piece of unreleased video game art.
Yep.
And I do not have a guess. Like there are a number, and we'll just we'll jump in.
Yeah. This one was listed as Dragon Slayer. Now,
Okay.
Dragon Slayer was a series from Falcom, and Legacy of the Wizard was in that series. I don't know if Faxanadu was, but they were Falcom games, and that's a long-running series. A lot of the games started on like PC 98 over 01 in Japan. But this one I don't recognize at all because they've got the dragon and what looks like a princess, and then a guy with a machine gun or a bazooka. There's like a ghost character. So
So
this one I'm
actually,
kind of baffled.
no, this one was just recently identified. So online, the website vgdensetsu.net. The same guy used to run a Twitter account. Now I think he's on Blue Sky. And so yeah, this was unused, but the game itself, I'm kind of scrolling because I can't remember it. I mean, it is Dragon Slayer, but I'll scroll and I'll hit it in a second here. Um, so if I can find it, oh man, of course it's not. Of course, when I want it to happen, it's
Of
there.
course.
It is. Okay, so Final Fantasy Legend. This was unused US artwork for the Final Fantasy Legend. So if you search, I guess, the Final Fantasy Legend Japan, which I think is the Game Boy game, and so that guy, this is that contorted history of things being named Final Fantasy in the U.S. Right. So in Japan, this was the Saga series of
Mhm.
RPGs, and then so in the U.S. Final Fantasy Legend, or in the U.S. they named the Saga series from Square just called it Final Fantasy Legend. So if you search like the Japanese Game Boy box art for, I guess I'm going to keep saying Saga, um, it'll have these same really similar kind of posing, right? You've got the guy with the bazooka right in front, the girl at the right, and the dragon in the background. Um, Either we'll put one up on the final. I don't know if you've
Okay.
searched it in the background, Chris, but it's yeah, I think this image was up on Stephen's website, and it wasn't known what it was because he had it called Dragon Slayer. And then yeah, now that it's and I can't remember if right Saga. Can't remember if the Dragon Slayer was like a correct name in some weird way, but ultimately this is unreleased artwork for the Final Fantasy Legend. So
Okay.
in the end, it instead had the artwork that Stephen also did that was published. Right, had
The helmet.
a helmet and the sword and maybe a chest with a ray of light coming down. Which so Stephen still did the final artwork for Final Fantasy Legend. This being unused artwork for that same title.
Gotcha. All right. Again, just a couple shots that show a little bit of the detail. All right, and that is number 2.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this. I'm sure this piece got a lot more attractive, kind of making the connection that this is Final Fantasy art, or Saga art, depending on how you want to view it, right? But
Yep.
it's cool. It's RPG artwork, unused, uh, and Nintendo Game Boy.
All
All
right,
right,
number 3.
so this one is going to be SNES box art. I'm gonna guess. I don't know the title. The football one.
Was it Super Play Action Football or something like that?
Yeah, that's gonna be my guess.
All right. It is not. It is the IREM arcade port of Gunforce for Super Nintendo.
Cool. Oh wow. Huh. I never would have expected it to be shot in portrait or to be painted
Yeah,
in a big portrait like
because
that.
the box art is like, cut off here.
Yeah. So they must have used this same artwork for like a full page magazine ad or something, right? With a whole
Maybe.
bunch of text at the bottom. Um, cool.
So this
This
one's
is
definitely a cool piece. Unfortunately, there's a story that goes with it. There's a little bit of damage to the picture. This one Stephen took and hung in one of his kids' rooms when they were younger, and it fell off the wall, and unfortunately the glass shattered, and there's a little bit of marks on the below piece, and there's like a scratch on one of the helmets. Um, so take a look at it. It's not pristine, but it's still a very cool piece. Very
you
displayable.
know what I've kind of it's the damage is a very interesting concept for original art, right? Especially for illustration art. There's one of all of these, right? And so like I've gotten things and most things coming from the artist, they're in pretty good condition, right? You have stories like this, was in the wall, it fell down, got scratched. But like if you want the Gunforce artwork, I mean, this is the Gunforce artwork, right? There's you can't be like, it's scratched. I guess I'll just wait for a better copy, right? I mean, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So I see that almost in a sense of like I feel like a lot of ways it doesn't always play into value as much as it should, or not even that it should. But if you remember the Prince of Persia artwork that came to Heritage, maybe it was January 2023. It was about $63,000,
Yep.
right? And that had some noticeable damage and things kind of along the top, and there was some uncertainty over how perfectly the damage was described or what it was. I can't remember if it was water related. um
I
but
know
I mean,
Gex was that way as well, the Gex art that came up.
yeah, Gex definitely did. And for Prince of Persia, I don't think damage had an impact on the final price. And I think now, could it have gone higher? Sure, but I think that's almost more of a reality of just people needing to have $60,000 all at once to drop in an auction than
Yeah.
it is that the damage held back a final result or something.
Yep. And this one
So
also had a sketch that came with it.
okay,
So you can
so
see,
is it
Stephen's early
unused?
exploration.
Yeah, different layouts. Okay,
And then I believe there was also a color comp.
nice. And is it? Looks like it's a fully painted color comp, maybe with color pencil.
Yeah, it looked like colored pencils. And this
Okay,
was just a photocopy. So,
of that layout. Okay,
yeah.
very cool. That's a good one. That's a good
Yeah,
one to come. I think it's a side-scrolling shooting game. I think,
that's correct. Yeah.
and it was yeah, you kind of I think you mentioned this at the start of like it being a port, right? And
Hmm.
so even though it was Nintendo published, no, it was IREM.
Iron,
I
yep.
guess IREM published. Okay, very cool. Yeah, because I've gone through recently just this thought in my mind, right? And I kept thinking, okay, if it's published by Nintendo, that means it's first party. And I'm realizing, I guess it's not quite right because not this one, but I mean like other titles where Nintendo might publish something, but if it was developed by another studio, like that wouldn't be first party, right? That would be Nintendo published game,
Yeah.
and this is just IREM, which is kind of almost second party, kind of, right?
If it was something that Nintendo wanted the developer to make, that would be second party. Third party would be somebody makes a game and Nintendo publishes and distributes it. So,
Okay. I guess everything gets a little the history gets a little weird because of how controlling Nintendo was.
sure.
Where like if you were publishing on another console, maybe they weren't going to let you publish on Nintendo, and some of those politics, I guess,
Yep.
right? Which kind of distorts how we would describe things.
Yep. Kept a lot of
Um,
great franchises and companies on their platforms only until people started figuring out ways around it.
yeah, yeah,
So
like Konami making a second company called Ultra.
yeah, the shell
It's different,
company.
guys. We promise.
Yep.
Um, awesome.
Cool.
Well, it's good. I'm glad to see there's box art coming too, or coming to
Absolutely.
auction.
All right. Let me see if I can. Okay, number 4. You want to read what you've got?
All right, I've got ad art for an NES game. Um, I know there is. God, what is it? Jeremy Smith likes this one. I don't know if it's going to be it, but the Spy versus Spy. No, maybe not. All right, I'm going with the Spy versus Spy.
Alrighty.
But
This one is the Kickle Cubicle ad.
okay, it's so funny. I've until you read it out loud, I've seen Kickle Cubicle. I'm aware of what it is. I've never tried to say it. Right? Like you read it and you're like, oh, that's what it is. That's what it is. But I'm like, if you know from Harry Potter, Hermione, right? The character, and you're reading the books, and I never tried to pronounce it. I said, oh, it's the girl whose name starts with H, right?
Yep.
You just, yep. So I had never read Kickle Cubicle out loud until this moment.
Yeah,
Cool.
it doesn't seem like it feels like it's a set of words that go well together. You have to kind of read it and think about it in your head before you say it. So,
Yeah. And I guess like yeah, I mean you kind of I'm thinking, an office, the cubicle, that
yep.
square shape, right? And so like maybe I should I mean and Kickle Cubicle was not is this another port? Do you like was it on other things as well?
I don't think
Like
so. I thought it was only NES, but I could be wrong.
okay. Okay, it was an arcade game.
Yeah. Was it?
Uh
Okay.
but was it okay, developed by IREM for the arcades in 1988 and then ported to the NES in 1990.
That makes sense.
Okay. So okay, IREM arcades ported to NES. Okay. Huh. Awesome. Um, yeah, it's good. Okay, so far we've got the Captain Nintendo work. We've got the Final Fantasy Legend / Dragon Slayer artwork. We've got Gunforce Super Nintendo box art. Now this is our first NES piece, Kickle Cubicle ad art. Okay. Hey, nice lineup so far.
Yeah. All right. We will go to number 5, which I've already shown
You've
online
shared.
for Mario Day.
Yeah.
And that's the N64 launch trailer or the launch ad that ran in magazines and had flyers distributed, basically announcing the launch date for the Nintendo 64.
And I know this one, there's a kind of a, I don't know, split opinions online, but like this commentary of, well, Bowser's not a dinosaur, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess that's launched whatever debates.
Yep.
I do remember how big this one is, Chris. Maybe we'll
I
probably
can
get a
tell you.
sense from the pictures.
Give me just a sec here.
Okay. It looks like a good 20 plus inches.
It's 18 by 23.
Okay. All right. That's good.
And
Is that the paper size?
I believe so. Yeah, yeah. It's not the image
Okay.
size. It's the paper.
Yeah.
And then
Cool.
just to round things out, the Dragon Slayer / Saga / Final Fantasy Adventure is 21 by 26.
Okay. Good size.
The Kickle Cubicle is 17 by 21,
Okay.
and the Gunforce is 24 by 30.
Wow. Yeah, I know Greg Winters is an artist that did a lot on 20 by 30 boards. And it's bigger at 24 by 30, but it's a big piece. It's about the size of a window.
Yeah, the colors are really vibrant in this one. I really like it.
Yeah, it's a cool texture. Seeing Bowser's scales, I guess you call it. Like on the published ad, you never would have looked at that or given it second thought, but kind of realizing that like it's not just a texture that you're doing on the computer and then duplicating for a whole thing. You're kind of painting that texture, right? Because you could just go solid color, right? And I guess but I think almost the textures and the way it's painted to look a bit like polygons. I mean, do you
Hmm.
see that too, Chris? Right,
Oh
where
yeah.
it's kind of, hey, we're making a 3D Mario. We're gonna have 3D games in the N64, and it's kind of cool. There's traditional art previewing that style. Um, Very nice.
And
But
this
yeah,
one
I mean,
should come with a copy of the ad, which is cool.
yeah, and well, what I like down at their bottom too is it's not just a copy of the ad, right? It's got the is it? I know I can see Stephen Periger's name on it.
Yeah.
And that is that say the estate or it's just like his own little address and
It's
contact
it's
info.
like an address label.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, good. No, I mean that's neat, right? Just as like it cements it as an additional thing that came from Stephen and came
Yeah.
with the auction. I mean, so far, I mean, and kind of looking over the summaries of the other pieces, right? I imagine this will really be the marquee piece of the auction.
Probably. I mean, this is the one with the most iconic characters. Mario art is impossible to find. It's for the launch of the Nintendo 64, which is a lot of people's favorite platform. So, yeah, it's got a lot of things going for it for sure.
Yeah, I think this is the kind of piece that gets really exciting to come to auction. Because there's if if you know those optics, right? That there's so few Mario pieces and proper Mario pieces, right? And we joke and make a little commentary here and there about some of the Kellogg's artwork that has come to Heritage, and hey, it's gotten some higher than expected prices just because it's Mario, right? And there's this, you know, it, if you have something better, right? If you have a true Mario piece, however you define it, you're probably not just going to send it into Heritage, right? You're going to want to ask a very high price privately, which would be warranted, or you don't want to sit on it, or you just want to keep it. And so getting a piece like this of this quality coming to auction, I think is going to be really exciting. I mean, my hope is that you've got new eyes coming to the original game art hobby, where that this, I'm sure this will get printed in the catalog. Maybe as kind of a prominent picture, prominent promotion for it, and that yeah, maybe people who have been game buyers but hadn't really looked at the artwork before have an interest in a piece like this.
And it's also kind of approaching the 30th anniversary of Nintendo 64 in the US, I think. So, I think that's next
Wow.
year. So, yeah,
Okay.
kind of cool.
Very, very cool.
All right. So, moving on to number 6. Any guesses
And
on
so
this
this
one?
gets interesting. You have this marked down as magazine art, and I, unless it's Nintendo Power, which it may not be, I have no idea what I would describe as magazine art. So I'm
I think it's magazine
launching.
art. I think it's a cover for a magazine, but I'm sure there's
Is
people
it?
out there who will correct
Can
us.
I ask? Is it Street Fighter?
It is not.
Okay, let's see it.
All right. So number 6, here it is.
Okay, okay. Yeah, this was maybe you call it a magazine. Yeah, it was a printed publication. I guess that makes it a magazine. Like a guide, I think, but something like a guidebook, maybe.
That's what I feel like it comes from, but again, I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure
Yeah,
your listeners and readers will correct us.
yeah, and hey, we'll be in due time, right, in the Facebook group and all the discussion leading up to the auction in May. That like people will be posting. I will, others will. This is where this was published. This is what it is because I've seen this. I think I knew it was Peringer, right? But like as I'm thinking about pieces, right, of course it wasn't the top of my mind. But it's very clearly NES. You can't say it's not.
Yeah. And I remember him just telling me about doing the circuit board type thing that he drew here. And then he had some sketches that I believe were it was kind of like this was the outside of a machine, and then he did some sketches that were like the inside of what the circuitry would look like inside, or maybe it was vice versa. I think this was the outer. So it was kind of interesting. The inner one was only a sketch, but
Yeah.
this outer one was obviously a more finalized.
Do you know? wonder what an assignment like this is for is like for an artist, right? Where if this is a if there's an effort to try to make the circuitry look accurate and he's looking at reference pictures, or if it's just kind of, do your best, right? And kind of like put things where you think they should go. And um, I mean, because certainly Nintendo could give him, right? Here's what the circuit board looks like for the NES. That would be the easiest thing, is to like, here's a reference, it's accurate, now illustrate it. Um, I think I'm going to guess that this is close to what it looks like, but, no idea.
And I believe this one is 21 by 26. So
Okay. Yeah. Is there, and so he's painted all the text here as well then, right? There's
yeah,
no
it's part of the
overlays.
image and no
Okay.
overlays.
Okay. Huh. Neat.
Alrighty, let's go to number 7.
All right. So I know 7, 8, 9. We've got a trio of arcade flyers or arcade art. And so what was interesting to me, I don't know which ones these will be, but if I remember, yeah, even though the NES launched 85, 86, that Stephen was doing artwork for Nintendo before that, right? With the Nintendo VS. So I imagine these are VS flyers pre NES. But let's dive into number 7.
All right, you are correct, sir. So this one's Gumshoe, which I love.
And
Very
Gumshoe
cool.
did get an NES port too, right?
Correct.
Very cool. Okay.
And you can look online for the flyer, but I like the diamonds, the character, the gum in the shoe,
Yeah,
obviously.
the literal
Yep.
Gumshoe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was Gumshoe a shooting game?
It was. Yeah. You had to
Okay.
keep that guy in the air and avoid hazards.
Okay. And if I remember, Duck Hunt was not a VS game. Like Duck Hunt was as a NES exclusive.
I think it was in the arcade, but I could be wrong.
Okay. There's I think so many people have this concept that, like, console gaming started with the NES, right? Or gaming history starts with the NES,
Sure.
and certainly me coming later, right? Like I didn't go as deeper into the Atari or the other consoles of that era. Um, Very cool. It's good
This
to
one
see this early
is,
Nintendo stuff.
and this one's 16 by 18.
Okay, I like that size. I think 15 by 20 is kind of my favorite. That, like, it's a good size. You frame it, you add a mat, it makes it a little bigger, but you're not taking up. It's not the size of a door when you're all done.
Yep.
All right,
All right.
number 8.
Number 8, we have the Versus Slalom arcade artwork.
Ah, okay. I don't think I had realized. So there's another artist, Scott McDougall, who also did work for IREM. Also did work for some of this VS arcade stuff, Nintendo VS, and there's another one. It must not be Slalom. It must be similar but different. And similar imagery is what I'm coming. And the only reason I'm remembering, because that one is actually signed McDougall somewhere in the artwork.
Okay.
And so, and that's right. Yeah, I think Perringer's signature did make it onto a couple of these published VS flyers. It'll be off in the corner or chopped off or hard to read.
And this is
Very
kind of
cool.
the physical flyer that went with it. So,
Okay.
but yeah, we'll pause on the art here and let me look up the size real quick.
Yeah.
Versus Slalom, created in 1986, 20 by 25.
Hmm. Cool. Wow, it's big. Bigger than I would have expected. Um, Almost like there's kind of not to say there's no rhyme or reason, right? But I do wonder about that thought process, right? Like I imagine you're getting paid more, maybe you go a little bigger. Bigger lets you pack more detail into a piece. But I know if you've ever seen a big piece of artwork that isn't well done, it really shows, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if it's smaller and not well done, or if you choose to not put as much effort into it as the artist, right, it gets hitting a little better. Cool.
Alrighty, moving right along. Got a number 9 here, and this is the Nintendo Summer of Excitement Play Choice 10 art.
Okay. Okay, this one. Yeah, I've seen there were quite a lot of Play Choice 10 flyers and material, not by Peringer, but by other artists, but I don't know how many of them have been identified. Um, there's a weird one I kind of remember of like Mario and surfing and Ninja Turtles. But I don't think that was in Peringer.
Do you ever remember playing on these arcade cabinets?
No, not at all. I was born in '87, so this was
Okay,
all. I'm a youngin
they were pretty cool.
for this stuff.
They were in the movie theaters and stuff like that, and they featured the same Nintendo games that were on your Nintendo Entertainment System. A lot of them were set to be a lot harder because they were in the arcade. I think on most of them you had a time limit to play rather than just being able to play how good you were. It counted down, and when that timer was done, you had to put another credit in to continue playing. And there were a few games that were available on like Famicom in Japan, but not
Okay.
in the US. Maybe they were planning to release them here, but I know
Okay.
in the US we got Goonies 2, and in
Okay.
Japan they also got a Goonies 1. And so Goonies 1 I remember playing on this quite a bit with my best
Uh,
friend. So
was a Play Choice 10? Were there carts that would swap in and out? Like it
I
was
believe
something. It was different, right? It wasn't just an arcade machine. It was.
Yeah, I think you could plug in up to 10 carts and you could cycle
Okay.
between the carts and play whichever one you wanted. So, and I
Okay.
remember seeing most of these like a couple months or sometimes a bit longer before they actually came out on NES. You knew they were coming. I remember like playing through and beating Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2, and I knew a third
Okay.
one was coming. And so I remember it being on one of these Play Choice 10 machines before it was ever available at retail. So it's kind of like getting to preview it early.
Wow. So that's kind of neat concept that you take, I guess, a retail cartridge, but then like you can add countdowns and kind of use the hardware to alter how the cart and the software works, which is kind of neat, right? You could take the exact same game, make it harder, right, to make people spend quarters and all that.
Yeah.
Neat. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like okay, there I kind of see its usage, right? And so like as a painting, right, it's probably not going to be the most exciting, right? It's not depicting a single game or a scene or anything else, right? But it's still that early Nintendo history mixed in with the NES, and I'm sure there's others like you that have that kind of memory, right, of seeing them in movie theaters, being familiar with it. And there's a lot of people. There are people that collect maybe more in the display and kiosk community, right, that collect the Play Choice 10s and have them in their game rooms.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
All right, so we've got two more pieces that'll be in the signature. Um, Number 10 I have down as unused magazine cover. And again, the one that coming to my mind is there is this one Peringer Street Fighter image that's I don't think was ever used. And I don't know if this is it or not, right? But that's gonna be my guess if we're taking guesses.
You are correct, sir.
All right. And now what I'm hoping is that through these okay, so you have it marked unused, I have it as unused. So maybe we're both like because there's a very similar published image that I think is not by Peringer that has the same four characters, right?
Yeah, I think there was a Street Fighter 2 Turbo strategy guide, and I
Yep.
think this was created for that, but they went with another cover. So,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's cool. I think even unused, I think knowing it's Nintendo Peringer, who I think will become a better known artist, among game fans and things. Like I think you take like a Tom Du Bois and stuff, and Greg Martin and Greg Winters. There's almost this lag time, right? Where there's the, for Greg Martin, it was he passed away, got shared on Nintendo Age, a number of articles got passed around, and now 10 years later, it's Greg Winters is kind of a household name, or Greg Martin kind of a household name for video game fans. Then over time, oh, Konami, Tom Du Bois, right? And so I think I think in time people will become much more familiar with Peringer's name. Certainly the R-type artwork that you own. These 18 pieces coming to auction, and so having something Nintendo and Street Fighter and Peringer even unused, I think will be kind of exciting to see how it does.
For sure. And I mean, it's an amazingly huge franchise from Capcom. The Street Fighter series is still going to this day with Street Fighter 6 or whatever they're on now.
Mm-hmm.
And these are kind of the iconic boss characters. So if you're talking US names, you've got Balrog at the top, Sagat on the left, M. Bison on the right, Vega on the bottom. If you're talking Japanese names, then M. Bison is on the top, but we don't want to be sued for being Mike Bison. And his name in the first Street Fighter was Mike. So there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, Sagat is still Sagat. Vega
Yeah.
is actually Balrog in Japan,
Okay.
and then M. Bison is Vega. So they kind of switch those three names around.
Oh man, that is a headache. I can't believe. I mean, you're a much bigger Street Fighter fan than I
Oh
am
yeah,
to keep that in mind and remember it. And I think that's what, like, even if they're at Street Fighter 6 now or something, you compare it to like Mortal Kombat, which is got to be around 20 games total, right? I mean, they're probably at they've had Mortal Kombat 10 and X and uh, reboots, and the franchises have gone in very different directions. I mean, Street Fighter kind of cheats and puts out extra games without adding numbers to them. And you had Street Fighter 3, and it's kind of this other, like, the
yeah. If you
that and
try
just
going
different,
through the chronicle history, it's like Street Fighter One, then there's Street Fighter Two, Street Fighter Two Championship Edition, Street Fighter Two Turbo, Super Street Fighter Two, Super Street Fighter Two Turbo.
right.
Then they kind of went to Street Fighter 3 and Street Fighter Alpha, Street Fighter Alpha 2 and 3, Street Fighter 3 Second Impact, Third Strike. Eventually 4 came out and they did like 2 or 3 versions of that. I think 3
Okay.
versions. And then,
Okay.
yeah, it goes on and on.
Yeah, I feel like once you get to 4, maybe it's a little more sane, right? But
Yeah,
that 2, 3 area, they're really just, yeah, and maybe they're just different ports, different systems, slightly different. So we're going to keep this as 2. Um, but
I mean,
yeah, so this being,
I was going to say it was the longest running joke that, like, Street Fighter and Capcom can't count to 3. They just can't make a third game. So,
hey, and everybody remembers Street Fighter 2, right? So
yeah,
getting Parents of Street Fighter 2 artwork, very cool to see this be one of the pieces.
yeah. And these first few are just photocopies. I don't know if they'll be included. They're not exactly, you know, sketches or anything like that. Obviously, they were sketches, but it's just the
Yeah.
photocopies. So,
Hmm. Yeah. Maybe. Hopefully they are, right?
yeah,
Because you almost kind of wonder what does the family do with a couple of photocopies for which they don't have the painting, and like there's artwork that I owned previously that now has new homes, and if I have that kind of material, I'll usually just include it with it and say, hey, this is a package.
totally.
All right, so we have our final piece, number 11. This will be the final piece coming to the May signature. This is a PC game box art. I am going to guess Leisure Suit Larry.
Leisure Suit Larry. It is King's
No,
Quest
King's Quest.
7.
Ah, I've always liked this one.
Yeah, it's very cool. Stephen told me a story, and I'll tell that story in the future when we go through a later piece. But
Okay.
yeah, I believe this is the final box art that was used. So, and I think
Okay.
King's Quest 7 was what the Princess Bride is what they had the subtitle for. But yeah, very colorful box art, very kind of cool going down the spiral staircase and then seeing the castle, the electricity on the right hand side, the lightning. So
Interesting. So when I knew he did at least 3, maybe 4 different paintings for King Quest 7, and I'm looking at now. I had thought the box art was the one with, I don't know. I'll just say the queen, the witch. I don't know the characters well enough, right? But there's this one where there's this orange vortex, and the characters are falling down into it, and you've got the witch looking over everything. That's kind of what I'm seeing as the
hmm,
box art. Um, but there might
I
have
kn-
been a few
yeah, I think there was
weird.
multiple versions of the box art. So this is one of the ones that was used, but it might have
Yeah.
been Europe or something else. I don't know where they used it. I'm not a big PC gamer myself. So
Yeah. And like I don't know anything about King's Quest, but I've just always liked the brightness to these pieces.
Yeah,
You know that he did at least at least four different, maybe three images that I can think of for King's Quest Seven, and I've always just they've always been bright. I think very different from the rest of the King's Quest artwork. I guess a series, so I could see someone being a King's Quest fan and not liking that they stand out. But for me, who doesn't have that kind of history and background, just seeing the brightness and being a fan of I mentioned earlier, right, Greg Martin and this kind of cartoonish bright look and the airbrushing. Um, I'm glad this is coming to auction.
it'll be a cool one to get. All right, and then switching gears just a tiny bit, we're moving on to the Nintendo Showcase auction for July 24th. We've got 4
Okay.
pieces in here.
All right. So I think we lead off with what you have marked as magazine art, and if this is coming now to a showcase and not to the signature, and kind of, I imagine it'll be one of those kind of more catalog cover kind of images.
That's correct.
Um, let's see which one it is.
This is Nintendo, the Future of Fun.
Okay. And does it say Nintendo on the artwork?
It does not.
Okay. So we have the future of fun, uh, airbrushed and custom fonts and things. Okay.
Looks
Okay.
like it
Yeah.
almost goes along with the other circuit board. Very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure they were same era, right? Or you could even have one on the cover, then one gets used. It's funny. I've known, I'm familiar with each of those published images, but like my mind and my organization has been so focused on like documenting box art catalogs and
Yeah.
things and saying, okay, like, here are all the games for this system and what artist did this piece and this piece and this piece and what years. That then when you get these artists doing non-box art work that like I've never like plugged it into, this is this year on this catalog. And but again, this is why we're doing this in March, and these are coming to auction in May, and there'll be plenty of time to discuss, and everyone will know all these pieces really well.
Yep. Alrighty. Moving on to number 13. Any guesses for this one?
Many sketches from an NES/Game Boy game. I probably should know which of his pieces were both published NES and Game Boy, but why don't we load it up?
All
Nothing's
right.
coming to mind.
So I wonder if Dan will be interested in this because it's Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle.
Oh, I didn't realize this one got used on Game Boy also. Okay.
I thought it did, but
Yeah.
if I put
But
something down wrong, then but I thought it was the same for both. So,
let's see.
but
Oh, well, there is Crazy Castle 2, which
okay,
was on Game Boy. Um, but that one is another
then
artist.
maybe it's just NES.
Yeah, maybe.
All right.
Hey, but that's good. No, I do see. No, you are right. I don't know. I see that art on a Game Boy cartridge. So,
Okay.
cool.
Iconic
It's
Looney Tunes characters. So Yosemite Sam, Sylvester.
Sylvester. What's interesting is seeing the the jump in accuracy between the sketches and the final.
Yeah.
Right? He's drawing it as he remembers or thinks about these characters, and then when you're doing the final, they're like, no, 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 right? He has to look like this, right? When
Yep.
every time you're working with licensed properties, and yeah, it's like those little things, right? Like the eyes being in a slightly different place. You're like, your mind goes, that's not Daffy Duck, right? And like, it's such an art to be able to uh, get it to look like the character every time. Um, So wow,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's there is one main sketch, right? And then there's so there's
Yep.
this primary image here, and then there's a variety of other pieces,
Yep.
partials and things. Cool, excellent. Okay,
Alrighty. Moving
and
on
so
to
then we've got
14.
Early sketches of a SNES box. All right, I won't guess at this point. There's too many SNES boxes it could be.
All right. Well, it's Final Fantasy Legend.
Okay, this one's
This
Legend.
is a
Yep.
photocopy, so these are not going up for sale. Sorry, I should have pulled these out. But these are actual sketches of the character from Final Fantasy Mystic Quest.
Okay. And so Mystic Quest is one I had looked at because Mystic Quest is, they're like, okay, with Final Fantasy Legend, that was the US name for Saga in that series. And I think I looked up Mystic Quest. I think Mystic Quest is its own game. Like it is Final Fantasy, it is its own game.
Mystic Quest was created to be, hey, RPGs like Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest are hugely popular in Japan, but they're not hugely popular in America yet. And we need to create a game that's super simplistic that
Mm-hmm.
will teach them the basics of an RPG and how it plays so that they can graduate into playing the more complex games like Final Fantasy 4, which is R2, and 6, which is
Yeah.
R3, and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So it was a US, it wasn't it was made for the US market. It eventually got ported back to Japan, but yeah,
Hmm.
that's the story. And then yeah, with the Game Boy versions, I know they took from multiple series for Final Fantasy Legend, Final Fantasy Adventure. I think even Seiken Densetsu, the Japanese series, which is Our Secret of Mana, was used
Yep.
for some of the Final Fantasy games. So it's a
Okay.
twisted history that they're unraveling now with the current releases, getting everything
Yep.
properly numbered and in the proper series. So
Well, even, there's so much of that, right? So, like, earlier I mentioned Dragon Quest, right? But it was Dragon Warrior for the first four games.
yep,
And then we didn't get 5 and 6 here. Maybe we did, or we didn't get them till the DS, probably, right?
yeah.
We didn't get them on the Super Nintendo, right? They were Super Famicom games. And then um, eventually, I think the Game Boy Color era, they just started calling them Dragon Quest. Um, huh.
So
Cool.
anyhow, these are photocopies,
Yeah.
and then this is the real sketch. These two. So
Okay. So there's two. Okay. So there's two sketches for Mystic Quest. That
yeah,
one looks like a pretty big size. I wonder. Do you think maybe that was a transfer drawing?
it might
Um,
have been. A lot of these seem to be on almost like tracing paper. So
yeah, because depending on how an artist works, right, being able to get the artwork, the final pencil sketches onto the illustration board that they'll then slowly mark off and paint in chunks. Yeah, I'm sure when we'll get all the measurements, so it's on Heritage, and yeah, this might be a transfer drawing. Cool. Yeah, it'll be good for that showcase to kind of have that anchor, or like that'll be people will show up and say, okay, here's my chance to get something Final Fantasy, and that'll bring the viewers to the other bidders, right, watchers, to the other pieces in the auction.
yep. All right, moving on to 15. What did I write for this one?
A color composition for a Super Nintendo game. All right, let's see which one it is.
It is Street Combat.
Okay. Ah, again, yeah. He had with the gun. Uh, shit. What is the gun one called?
Battle Clash?
Gunforce. No,
Oh,
Gunforce. Gunforce.
Gunforce, yeah.
Gunforce also had a comp that was done similar style, right?
Yep.
And almost in colored pencil. Okay.
And I think there's
Okay.
a sketch or
Couple
two that go
sketches.
along with it.
Yeah.
That's a photocopy, and that's a close-up of the photocopy. So yeah, sketch and a color
Yeah.
comp.
So now it gets interesting, right? There's so all this stuff is coming to auction this year, and as we talked, together on the podcast episode, there were a couple pieces that you purchased. Certainly Dan and Adam made a couple purchases a few years ago, and I think they've shared what their pieces are, um, I'm very curious kind of where the other purchases that have happened, and kind of timelines for when those will come out from those owners, whoever they are. You know, kind of like with I know with your first piece, kind of like a 2-year payment plan and deal. So I'm kind of curious. Some of these might take a little time to work out, but I'm glad that these pieces are coming to auction. Right, that buyers will have a chance to yeah, to add some of it to their collections.
Yep.
So this takes us through the Nintendo Showcase auction, leaving us with 3 pieces in the PC showcased on August 7th, and then the final piece, um, you know, between one of those first 2 auctions.
Yep.
Do you want to jump to 19 then
We
before we
can.
go?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had this one and shot pictures of it. The Peringer family and I couldn't figure out where it was from. Luckily, we shared this image with Sanford, and he saved the day and
Yeah.
told us that it's from Super RC Pro-Am on Game Boy, and it was made as a promotional standee that was in stores. So,
Yeah. And so, yeah, this is one I had looked at on, and so what I always liked that Peringer had quite a bit of his video game portfolio up on his website. And so this is one of many images, just like that Dragon Slayer one that we now know is unused artwork for Final Fantasy Legend, that you would I would look at this image and be like, okay, clearly it's RC Pro Am, but like, where is it? How is it used? And it could never figure it out, never figure it out. And then, so on Facebook, we have the original video game art Facebook group. There's another group that's called like the Kiosk Collective. That's all display, or maybe it's called the Display and Kiosk Collective. So it's all the people that are collecting signage and not for retail posters and things like that. And so someone in their photograph of their own collection had this RC Pro Am standee. It's probably about 8 by 11, right? It's kind of a small thing, a countertop standee, I think is what you call it, right? So even though this is a rectangular piece, I think the printed one is almost slightly triangular. On the back, it probably has like a flap, to like stand it up, standee. Um, so it was a long time. I was like, oh, maybe it just wasn't used. But sure enough, right? I'm sure pretty much everything Peringer did for Nintendo probably got published somewhere, some way. Um,
yeah.
it looks
And this one,
big.
this one's a whopping 20 by 25. Yeah.
Wow. I'm guessing they'll put this into the. I'm guessing they'll have to put this in the signature. Like I'd put this in the signature over, maybe some of like the circuitry boards and things like that. And so I'm curious if, from your knowledge of it, Chris, do you think kind of the placement is pretty set, or do you think that'll could
Uh,
shift at all?
Originally, when we brought it, we couldn't identify it, and Evan was like, "Hey, we don't know if this was really game-used art," and without any type of info, and we did all the Google image searches and things like that. We're not going to put it up,
Yeah,
in one of those, which I can't blame them for at all. And then
sure.
once you had kind of solved the mystery, we came back and say, "Hey, mystery solved. Sanford from the OVGA website was able to recognize this and show us where it's from. Here's a picture of it. Would you have any interest in this?" And they were like, "Absolutely. Now that we've solved the mystery and we know where it was from." And they were like, "We will either put it in the signature auction or the Nintendo showcase. We'll wait till we get all the pieces and then we'll figure out where it fits best." So,
Yeah, cool. Hey, well, I'll be excited to see where it lands.
yeah.
All right, so and wow, big size too. Nice looking piece.
Yep.
All right, so now we're jumping. Our final 3 pieces 16, 17, 18. These are all going to be PC pieces. All right, so I'm guessing we're going to see a bit more King's Quest,
You
but
are correct,
let's
sir.
let's
All
see.
all three pieces are from King's Quest.
Okay.
There was two different versions of this one, and I don't know if they are going to auction them as one or do separate, but there is this version of like the castle and, kind of like some thorns or some demon hands, down here.
Hmm.
There's, I think, a shadow of a character here or something. So this is the first version that he did, I believe. And they asked him to go back and make some changes to it. And that meant he got paid the same amount to go back and do the exact same painting again with a little bit of changes. And he
Hmm.
was always thrilled to be able to do that. And so this was the second version, I believe.
Cool. Okay. And this one, must have been used interior for a magazine.
Something like
Just
that, yeah.
you leave the blank, you leave the middle blank for the words. there is like and maybe this will be one of the other two, right? There's this panoramic image. I had thought this was one half of that, but I'm not seeing it. Just I'm on Moby Games in the background, right? Kind of looking at some of the images. Cool. This will be another one where like I don't immediately know we know it's usage, right? We know it's King Quest 7, right? But I'm sure the community will find out. Okay, this was in Computer Games Magazine,
Yep.
whatever year.
Yep.
Cool. I
Alrighty.
mean, it's basic, right? But it's attractive. Very nice. He got paid twice for it.
Yeah. Number 17 is very similar. I almost think I like this one better, but the box art, this was the first version that he did, and he put the female character first at the top of the stairs and most prominent, and then they wanted it redone with the hero put at the top of the stairs. So very similar, but some slight changes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I think what I like about this one, compared to just even if the other one, right, is as a final published ad or something, right, that this just has a more complete look, right? It's a piece of art, whether it was the actual published piece or not, right? And it wasn't. Oh, that's a I'd seen if you go back, this is cool, right? Because I'd seen the image of the staircase, the characters, but just casually seeing the images and over time and knowing it was Stephen's work, but never really looking at what's at the center of the staircase, right? How does it connect to the castle and other things? Wow, I like it.
Yeah, great detail. Yeah, so there's no box art that I could find that was this exact image. The other one we found some CD cases that absolutely had that art. So, but
Okay.
I think it's no less impressive. I think I actually prefer this one, but I'm sure people who want the actual art from the game will go for the other one.
Nope. The best part about that though is for someone like you, if you like the image, you'll be getting it on a discount.
Yep.
You know, like there's
Or
times when I've had artwork come up and it's been for a Nintendo console or something, and I'm like, man, I just wish this was like obscure DOS instead of NES, right? Because it wouldn't have the same markup. And I'm like, I like the artwork all the same. Let me just get it with C level usage.
oh yeah, or even like the Alien Syndrome artwork I got where it was on,
Mm-hmm.
Armstrad and all these, European game
Yeah.
system PCs that we never got here. So it's like,
Yep.
okay,
Yeah. Different
yep,
different market. Or,
yep,
different. There's no nostalgia for the U.S. collector base, and you, Chris, are just like, yeah, I know the game, and the artwork looks great. I'll buy it.
yep,
All right, so we've come to our final piece.
yep. And this is the Evil Eyes ad.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of the evil queen.
And I had seen, I just, yeah, as I had, again, Moby Games in the background going through these. Yeah, I know this one was used in computer gaming world, among other places, I'm sure. So I think he did one other King's Quest piece that's this, panoramic scene. Took a double spread in the magazines. Looks like that one's not coming up here. Among the pieces being offered, but very
There's an
nice.
example of the ad that came with it, which I believe will be included. So
Mm-hmm.
photocopy.
Photocopy. Yep.
So there you
I
go.
I've always liked the eyes one.
Yeah.
I think this PC showcase will have some. I don't have a guess for where these will land, but I think they'll end up being pretty approachable. Knowing it's despite it being King's Quest and Sierra, like I think if you're someone who would want King's Quest or Sierra artwork, you're not really going to get a better chance than this. And I think Stephen's artwork is better executed than some of the earlier entries in the series. Just clearly bigger budget, right? I mean, he got paid twice on two different pieces to kill and repaint, and so this is exciting.
Yeah.
Um,
Glad I got to run through all these with you and let the listeners and the viewers on the Facebook page get in on
yeah,
this. So,
yeah. So we'll probably get this up on the Facebook group in the next, well, on YouTube in the next day or two. Share it in the Facebook group. people start to, get to a little bit of excitement, a little bit of anticipation, then a bit of hunting and figure out exactly where each thing was used and some of those details. And then we'll be waiting for Heritage for their scans, and then kind of eagerly awaiting for May.
Right on.
Well, I think we'll probably just wrap it up and call it there. Like, subscribe. We're the OVGA podcast. Run the website, originalvideogameart.com. And, of course, find us in the Facebook group, Original Video Game Art Collectors. Hey, thanks for joining, Chris, and thanks you for walking through all the pictures. We had a great time.
For sure. Thank you for having me.
Alrighty. Good to see you, man.